Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 290 of the Canadian Football Countdown, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network and the Alternative Football Network. Ryan and Trey here with you this evening. No Adam tonight. I'm feeling a little under the weather, but you got the two of us here tonight, and we're here to preview Week 3 in the CFL. We'll go through the Week 2 CFL Hot Takes Challenge and then do our game previews with major storylines, fantasy players to watch, and betting picks for an interesting Week 3 we have ahead of us here tonight. We'll also take your comments and questions in the live chat throughout the night. Thanks to our presenting sponsor, Game Time TV. You can learn more at GameTimeTV.ca or Facebook.com/GameTimeTVNB. Send in those comments and questions all throughout the evening here. But before we go any further, let's welcome in the other half of the duo here tonight. A man who was recently voted equally the most funny person on the podcast. Trey, how you doing? His internet may have frozen. This is an excellent start.
Yeah, no, I heard enough. I guess I'm not that funny, and we'll continue the show as, just as boring. Hello?
I think you were having some network connection issues.
Yeah, I'm going to back out and try this again. You talk.
I'll do the intro stuff, and we'll get Trey back in here. But in the meantime, let's go through the rest of the housekeeping notes here. We'll do the land acknowledgement as we always do. As always, we do want to acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. If you're looking for additional content in between our weekly episodes here, make sure you check out the Canadian Football Countdown Discord community as well. There's a link in the episode description. It's free to join us over there. We've got live game chats going for each of the games throughout the season. We've got lots of CFL fantasy chatter, betting talk, all of that fun stuff going on over in the Discord. So lots to talk about throughout the week of the CFL, especially over the summer when the games are a little more spread out like this. And there's always something to talk about every day. So check out the Discord community, link in the episode description. Come join us over there and continue the fun in between episodes. And Trey, I think you're back now. How's it going?
Yeah, good. I was trying to load up the fantasy and CFL website all at one time, and my laptop said not today. So that's it.
It sounds exactly like the CFL website to me. You're not the only one to see if it is. You sound like the CFL right now. Problems loading the website. It's great. But you're here nonetheless. We're here to have a good time. And we're going to talk about Week 3 in the CFL coming up, 4 games on the schedule. But it's the newest hit segment of the podcast, that Mike actually kind of kickstarted for us 2 weeks ago when he started asking, what's everybody's hot take after Week 1? And we've turned this now into the CFL Hot Take Challenge. Every single week, we ask for your hot takes on social media from the previous week in the CFL. And we pick 3 of the best ones from the list. We'll go through those 3 here tonight, and we will crown one of them our Week 2 Hot Take Champion. People need to learn what a hot take is my hot take on all of this. And I think we'll adapt and we'll grow over the course of the season in that regard. Because if you go and tell me Montreal is good, that's not a hot take. If you tell me Hamilton is bad right now, that's not a hot take. A hot take's got to be a little spicier than that. Something that's realistic, but also a little more rare of an opinion that kind of makes you go, a little bit. So keep those hot takes coming. We got a lot of engagement throughout this week, which was great to see. But Trey, are you ready to dive into our 3 candidates for this week?
Let's do it.
All right. Our first one comes from our reigning champ, actually, which is Sandwiches from the Discord community. He was the Week 1 winner with his hot take, and he's back to try to defend his title here with a take that came after the Thursday night game between the Bombers and the Lions. Very good performance for Winnipeg, including one receiver, Carrick Wheatfall, who Sandwiches says Carrick Wheatfall will be the league's first 1,000-yard receiver of the season. And he also did follow it up with, if you disagree, then who will be the first to 1,000? Your thoughts on Carrick Wheatfall for 1,000 yards?
Yeah, you were talking about spicy level. If we're playing that Hot Ones challenge of chicken wings, this is like honey garlic for me, because I think that's pretty close to a solid bet that Wheatfall, if he's again bearing injury, I don't see why not. And the fact that he's $4,000 on fantasy is a crime. He should be 40,000, right? So, I think Sandwiches has it right on the nose. But again, like hot take, I don't think it's that hot, because I think it's very possible.
Yeah, I think it's a good take and a good hot take, because it's one of those where preseason we talked about it a little bit, right? Like, you picked Wheatfall pretty early in our draft this season, which was a little bit of a surprise that he was, I think, the first Bombers receiver to actually go off the board. But it was one of those things where you could kind of see that, he is going to be in for a really strong year. I don't know if I'll necessarily have him in the first to 1,000-yard category, but I can see it, right? Which takes it down a little bit of a notch on the heat scale there for me. If I disagree who will be the first to 1,000 yards, I'm going to say Kenny Lawler, maybe. Just because him and Bo seem to be throwing a lot of those deep balls, and he keeps coming down with them.
Yeah, 100%. Things could change. I'm just looking at the league leaders right now, and he is sitting 12th. But you have to remember he had the bye week one. So if you're looking at average yards per game, that 127 would be leading the league, because Kenny Lawler's got 247. Divide that by 2, that's under 1. That's not quite, So he is leading the way, and there's no Edmonton receivers on this list that had a bye. So, Wheatfall is definitely leading the charge there with only one game. He's beating guys who's suited up for 2, right? So I definitely think it's a possibility. But, the defenses might smarten up and not we'll cover them different. But you usually don't see that, because, again, if we want to go back to Schoen's first year, it took him defenses till his second year before they realized how to cover him sometimes. And we still see the same thing with Lawler. Cover the down guy, So I could see it being very, very well. I think it could be a couple horse race here. Excuse my pun, between Lawler, Hatcher, and maybe Wheatfall, and maybe a couple other guys that we don't know about yet.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing working against Wheatfall is going to be that the Bombers are a more run-heavy team typically, and Collaros doesn't throw a ton of yardage every single week, whereas you have a team like Hamilton and Ottawa that are going to throw, when their QBs are healthy, 40, 50 times a game, and rack up the yards as a result.
I mean, maybe they'll just start the number 2 best quarterback in the league that was posted, and he's got 3 tutties this season already. And again, he's tied for second, and he's only played 1 game. So
yeah, what a game by Chris Strebler this past week. I got to hand it to him. Kudos to him for winning a game with his arm and not with his legs. Who would have thought he would win in such commanding fashion with only 2 carries for 9 yards or something like that? Actually,
I think I said that. I think I've been saying all preseason that his arm looks great.
I think that's fair. I think you did. I don't
maybe I didn't say the exact words. He's going to win this game by throwing it, but I've been saying his arm looks like he can actually throw.
You have it. Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah. The lack of rushing, though, was still a surprise to me in all of that. Even if he's better as a passer, I'm surprised he didn't run as much as he did. But anyways, that's your first hot take of the week here. Second one comes from our friend Cliffy D over from the Alouettes Flight Deck, who sent this in on Twitter, that the month of June sees all 3 Ontario teams remain winless. Of course, they're 0-6 so far through 2 weeks of the season. And he says the Ottawa-Toronto game, which I think is next week, will end in a tie. This one, to me, it's fun. It's interesting. It's not in my running for the top hot takes here, just because the game ending in a tie is we're bending the fabric of time here a little bit. I mean, yeah, it could end in a tie, but that's the only way this happens. So to me, it's not that hot of a take, but yeah, I think the biggest thing I take away from this one is that every year we have this talk. This is the year the East is going to be better. This is the year. We talked about it this preseason once again, that the East is going to be strong. and now Montreal's the only team with wins so far through 2 weeks. I put it in my power rankings on Twitter this week or all over the socials that I think Montreal could there's a non-zero chance Montreal has first place in the East Division locked up by Labor Day.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. And like, again, like on the level of hot takes, I classify this one more as just absolute chaos. Like more than a hot take again. Like if the teams go winless and then Toronto, Ottawa ties on like what's essentially the last day of June or one of the last days of June, that'd be wild. And then look in the next week, Toronto's got Hamilton again. Like, now I know we're into July and the hot takes June, but at some point these teams are going to have to win because they keep playing each other unless they end up tying every week. But yeah, I'm actually quite shocked. I thought the East would be better. I was one of those guys that said the East, it's got to be better. Hamilton looked like they improved. Ottawa looked like they improved. I'll give Toronto a little benefit because they seem to be injury filled, but I mean, so is Saskatchewan. How many guys does Saskatchewan have on the IL? And they're 2-0. And Montreal's kind of. I was a little bit shocked about Montreal. I was a little bit like, that's kind of. I don't quite see the same hype in Alexander, but I guess you go with the young guy over Fajardo. I get that. So yeah, the East is very interesting, but again, yeah, this is more chaos than what's Jurassic Park chaos theory. And stuff like that more than. But yeah.
Yeah.
Chaos. What would chaos chicken wings even taste like? That would be wild.
Oh, I don't know. Try it out.
Flavor.
Yeah, so that's our second one on the list. Talking about Alexander, like if I were to bring a hot take to this challenge this week, and we've said, we don't count. Well, we'll give the crown to the fans of the show here. It would be that I think Davis Alexander is going to end up setting the record for the best start a QB has ever had to their career. He's at 6-0 to start his career as a starter so far. Danny McManus, I believe, has the CFL record at 8-0. I think Montreal is just going to continue to steamroll over the next little while. They look so good as a well-rounded team, and I don't even think it's hype on Alexander himself that I really have. Like, I think he's just managed the games well so far this season. It's not that he himself is necessarily lighting it up. It's just that Alouettes team is so good. And we kind of said that early on in the season last year of like, what's it going to take for them to stumble going forward? So that's my honorable mention, I guess, of the week. But our third one coming in, this one also coming in from Twitter from ZGFL Football. Barring injury before the season is over, Calgary's secondary will be recognized as the elite unit of the league. They have been good the first 2 weeks and will improve as they gain experience playing together in the system. Obviously, I've been a bit more of a believer in the Stamps than you have so far, Trey, but I feel like this week you started to turn the corner a little bit. What do you think of their defense?
Yeah, I'm amazed by all facets of their team. I thought VA was going to be stranded on an island out there, but his defense has kept him in it. I mean, they've been playing pretty good, but still they gave up. Oh, sorry. They gave up 26 to Hamilton, which is not terrible, but 19 against Toronto. Again, is that Arbuckle? Would have been different if it was a healthy Chad Kelly. Would have been different if they actually had a run game and didn't cut Kadeem Carey and kept the guys that aren't running the ball. Like, there's a lot of different factors, but I'm very, very impressed with Calgary. And that's when I could see happening as well, because Calgary is always that team where it's like, you think they're out and you think that's going to be a 10-year rebuild. And what has it been, 2 years of them being bad or worse than normal? 2 or 3 years since Bo left?
So, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And now they're right back at it, undefeated. And you want to look at things right now. You match up Calgary against Winnipeg, BC, Saskatchewan. God, I don't know who wins the West. Again, barring injuries, right? And it's probably going to come down to secondary and defense. And, I mean, we'll talk about my thoughts on Winnipeg in a little bit. But yeah, Calgary might be my second best team in the West right now if I'm doing power rankings. That's probably where I put them. Did I do power rankings this week?
I think you did, yeah. I think we both had Calgary at third.
Yeah, because I think I had Montreal in second. So again, I would think I have Montreal first, Winnipeg second, and then Calgary would probably be my second team in the West if I was just doing West power rankings, and I think they deserved it. And I'm actually really looking forward to them playing Winnipeg because that might be the battle for first. Again, depending on BC didn't quite look functional at times, and depends on Rourke's health and Edmonton, just I don't know what's going on there, and I just can't trust Saskatchewan. Something's gonna like one more injury, and I think Adam's gonna have to put pads on. That's what we say every year, right? So,
that's how you get your 14-4 season once you suit Adam up. There you go.
He's like Forrest Gump, just won't stop running the ball.
Hey, maybe he can kick.
Yeah, that's really why he's not here today. He's just trying to pass his physical so he can suit up this week.
Yeah,
but exactly. No, I like this one. This one's, again, I think the first and the third one are probably the two most likely to happen out of the three. So I definitely think we are talking about Calgary being a good team, let alone at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think this one gets my vote for the hot take of the week, because there was no way preseason any of us were really talking about Calgary as the elite unit, and I now see a way where that could be possible. And I think Montreal and Winnipeg are probably the elite units, but I think Calgary is in that upper echelon, can get themselves into that upper echelon. I mean, look no further than the evidence here that in our fantasy draft, we drafted 8 of the 9 defenses this year, and the only one we didn't draft was the Calgary Stampeders. And as we were talking about this, and as you were talking right now, it made me realize that none of us have the Calgary Stampeders defense, which is why I just went and added the Calgary Stampeders defense right mid-show while Trey was talking, and dropped the Argos defense, because I think Calgary has forced a couple of turnovers now. They've really held teams in check pretty well. Granted, it was Arbuckle last week, but Bo in that offense in week 1, they held them in check, and I think they are going to improve, because it's got a bunch of new players kind of working together here, and they don't pop on paper necessarily, but they're popping out on the field. So yeah, I'm high on all things Stamps right now through 2 weeks, and I'm high on this hot take. So I think this one gets my vote this week. Which of the 3 is your winner?
Yeah, I got to go with the third one as well. Like as I said, the first one, it seems almost like a guarantee. Almost, if he's not the first guy, he'll be one of the few, like up there. And then like the second one's just chaos. Not more than anything. I want the second one to happen. I think that would be wild. Heck with June. I don't want to see any of them get a win till the end of August. If they're just going to tie, that'd be great. And then that one, I think Calgary again. The only thing I have a problem with that one is I don't even think we're going to be doing it at the end of the season. By Labor Day, if they're everything health-wise, we're going to be like, damn, Calgary's back. It's going to be another annoying 4 or 5 years with Calgary now with VA under center.
Right. And the fact that he doesn't even have a touchdown pass yet, which we'll get into as we get into the game preview. But yeah, congrats. By the way, Adam did vote for the second one about the Ontario teams remaining winless. But our hot take champ of the week, ZGFL football on Twitter about the Stamps defense. Congrats to you. You get the crown, and no other prize than that, but wear the crown with pride. As we get into say goodbye to week number 2 and start looking ahead to week number 3. We got our 4 games on the schedule, and we kick it off Thursday night with the Montreal Alouettes visiting the Edmonton Elks, who are coming off of a bye. Alouettes 6-point favorites on the road. Over under is at 48.5. Let's start with our major storylines for this game. What intrigues you the most?
I mean, I think we know what we're going to get from Montreal from the most of it. I'm just curious in Edmonton, like, man, if you can't, like, I just want to know what they need to do to get back on track. Like, is it going to be starting Fajardo? Like, how long is Ford's leash? Is that the problem? That they not have, I don't know. It just like it's always weird when you see a franchise just be completely dysfunctional, and no matter how hard they try, a new president, a new quarterback, a new coach, a new this, hell, let's put the logo back to the double E's. Like, like they're trying every little thing possible here to try to get everything back on track. It's like, I don't believe the name change caused it, but you know what I mean? They're trying every little superstition. They're trying every little thing, the free tickets or whatever it was when they were losing this and that, and they just can't get anything going. I just want Edmonton to I want like a 5-team West that's powerful. Just sounds like a heck of a summer. And this is the only team right now that doesn't say that right now. Like Calgary shocked all of us. Saskatchewan and Winnipeg are just them, and BC's always going to be dangerous. I want the old Edmonton back where you go in there and you're scared to play in Commonwealth. I think that's one of those places too. And I think this is going to be a big test. And Oh, I just want Trey Ford to play. Canadian quarterbacks make a point for it. We were talking in the offseason where we could have 3 or 4 in the next few years, depending on what Rourke Jr. does, depending on what I always forget his name, the Bomber quarterback that went to Green Bay. We got Rourke Senior or older Rourke, got Trey Ford. We could have 4 or 5 Canadian quarterbacks in this league. I want Trey Ford to throw the ball and play lights out. I want to see him take charge of this game.
He just needs to be more consistent, right? Like I called it his escape artist or his magic act plays, that they're fun to watch. Like he's an exciting player to watch, but he's also such a frustrating player to watch on the other hand, right?
Maybe not size-wise and stuff, but would you almost put him in that same category as Strevy a few years ago? Where you know what I mean? Doesn't have the arm and he'll do something crazy to get the first down, but when you really need him to march the field, it just seems like there's missing that quarterback presence almost. It's kind of a weird, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like more often than not, it leads to disappointment. There's some questionable play calling. And I thought last year in some of the games he played, he did develop as a passer a little bit better than what we saw week 1 against BC. Like that, it was a very discouraging week 1 against BC for me, for Trey Ford and that offense. I also just don't think they have the wide receiver depth right now to kind of bail him out if he's not as accurate as he is. And that's where you look at, Ford versus Fajardo, who was the most accurate quarterback in the CFL last season. And I think this will be Trey Ford's team for a little while at a minimum still. They kind of committed to him with that 3-year contract and everything this offseason. And I do think he still deserves more of a chance, but he's got to settle in. He's got to, put together some consistent drives as a passer, not just look for his first guy. Oh, he's covered, take off and run or make a magic play happen, because that's not sustainable in order to win a football game. That's not how you're going to beat a team like Montreal. Like you need to have everything together in order to beat a team like Montreal, I feel like, because they'll beat you in all 3 facets of the game. And if you're lacking in one category or another, it's an uphill battle, and those gadget plays are going to maybe keep it interesting here and there, but they're not going to put you out on top. So, yeah, I think really all the focus is on how is Edmonton going to tinker with things over the bye week. On the Montreal side, I'm really interested. It's hard to find topics to talk about with Montreal. We talked about Alexander's start to his career a little bit in the hot take segment at the start of the show. Most interesting to me with Montreal has been the fact that teams have not run the ball on them so far, because that was their one weak point last season, was you couldn't beat them through the air, but you could beat them on the ground. They were one of the worst teams in the league in terms of run defense last year, and Toronto didn't run the ball against them. Ottawa didn't run the ball against them. You look at Edmonton, who as an offense needs to run the ball. That's how they are the most effective. And if they come out and hardly run against Montreal this week, then either something's up with the game plan or something greatly has changed with that Montreal defensive scheme this offseason, where teams are now kind of scared to do so.
Well, yeah, but why is it just a weird thing the East teams don't run? Because, I'm just looking at the leaguer in rushing. Winnipeg with Peterson. Mills second, Calgary. Ouellette third, Saskatchewan. Nathan Rourke fourth. And then finally, number 5 is Montreal and 6. And then BC's 7. Calgary's not 8. It's all the way down to 9 before we get a non-West or non-Montreal runner. And that's Myron Williams at 65 rushing yards. So it just seems like the East doesn't want to run. I don't know if it's Montreal necessarily and their defense. It's just we always talk about why didn't they run the ball? Like Toronto never runs the ball. Ottawa never seems to run the ball, even though they have stand back. So I that's why where I'm interested when Montreal finally takes on a team like Winnipeg or Saskatchewan or BC or something like that. BC doesn't really use their running backs too much either. But you know what I mean? A Saskatchewan or Winnipeg that's got Ouellette and Oliveira. That's where I'm interested to see what they're going to do with that. But otherwise, is Montreal almost that? I find Montreal's that weird team, like you said. I don't want to call them perfect, but there's just hard to pinpoint anything. Because Alexander's been pretty good. They have Tyson Philpott, for God's sakes. Their defense, maybe their run could be better, but they're pretty good pass defense. Their kicker's been pretty good. I had to pick him up this week in our fantasy league. they have a decent return game. Like, it's tough for me to find anything where I'm like, this is what Edmonton needs to do to win, unless they run the ball 60 times,
Right.
which watch Montreal be good at that this year. So I don't know.
Yeah, like I think for Edmonton to win football games, they got to be running the ball 30 times, 25, 30 times a night. Like that's just, I think, what they're going to have to lean on offensively with the makeup of their team this year. And so that's the major matchup to me is this Montreal run defense versus the run game of the Elks. And that's going to be probably a major deciding factor. On the Montreal side, if your defense can put up a touchdown every single week, like you're going to be cruising pretty well if you could keep that up as they have through the first 2 weeks of the year. Let's get into fantasy players to watch for this game. Who you have your eye on from Montreal or Edmonton this week?
Unfortunately, have nothing on Edmonton as of now. In our league, I do have Gittins Jr., and I just keep banking on him having a breakout game sometime, but I don't know when that's going to happen. So he is currently on my bench, I believe, in that league. But in the other, the game zone and stuff like that, I'm really staying away from Edmonton. My only thought maybe would be Ford for Price, and if you hope for a bunch of passing yards, if you want to go that route. But on Montreal, I actually got Tyler Snead. I went that route this week. I was thinking about that with 15.7 points last week. And it just fits in with my salary cap. How I have it constructed, I can't fit in Tyson Philpott as of now. So, but that would be the other route I would go. If I end up getting the salary, I would put in Tyson. You?
Yeah, on the Edmonton side, I'm much the same way. I'm not looking at really any quarterback playing against Montreal, so I'm probably not looking Ford's direction. If you're looking for the mobile quarterback, which for people playing fantasy for the first time this year, like those are the types of quarterbacks you want to look at. Let's go back to last week and how disastrous of a game that was for Nathan Rourke, where he started like 1 for 11 for 10 yards against the Bombers. Because of 54 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, he was the highest scoring quarterback of the week, I believe, as a result, and some big plays passing, right? So you want that mobile quarterback, but I would lean towards Rourke against the Bombers over Ford against Montreal. One big difference being also that Rourke's doing the short yardage right now, whereas Fajardo is going to take those goal line plays for, and so Trey Ford's not getting that rushing touchdown unless he rushes it out from far enough away, and I don't think the passing total is there right now, and it's not a good matchup. The one Edmonton side I'm considering is Justin Rankin at running back for $8,500. I liked in week one. I think he caught 5 or 6 passes in that game. Like I said, if Edmonton's going to have success, I think they need to run the ball and lean on him. So I do like that potential for a little bit of extra motivation there from Justin Rankin, a lot of swing passes with that Montreal defense leaning on them. I've got the Alouettes defense in my lineup currently as well. I'm going to put them in every week. They've got back-to-back weeks with touchdowns. I think it was 19 points in week 1, 15 points in week 2. Can't ask for much better than that. And on the Montreal side, I'm kind of like on the fence on almost any of the options that you consider from Montreal. Like Davis Alexander has looked solid, but hasn't wowed me a ton from a fantasy perspective. Sean Thomas Erlington had a quieter week last week. It was Travis Teese who took over, but he's out with injury. So maybe that means more carries for Thomas Erlington against Edmonton. I'm a little hesitant, though, to go that direction. And then Montreal receivers, I like your Snead pick. Obviously, Philpott is going to be good. My problem is that I think they just spread the ball around a little too much for me to hone in on any Montreal receiver as of right now. What do we got for our betting line here? We got Montreal 6-point favorites on the road, and the over-under at 48.5. Kick us off, Trey.
Yeah, so just looking over that real quick. If we go back to week 1 of Edmonton, they lost by 17 points to BC. And then Montreal week 1 beat Toronto by 18, and then week 2 beat Ottawa by 21. So the way I'm looking at this is, do I think Edmonton Or do I think so? Do I think Montreal is better than BC for one because BC beat Edmonton by this many, and then I look the other way: is Edmonton worse than Toronto and Ottawa? I think so. So I'm going to take that -6. This could be a double-digit game. I think if it gets messy, yeah, I think Montreal. This could be an easy double-digit game. And give me the. Let me see here. I'm going to take the under because it's probably going to be one of those ones where Montreal wins like 30-10 and something like that. So I will take Montreal and the under. What do you got?
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you on both of these. I think Montreal's defense just locks it down quite a bit. I do think Edmonton's defense, we didn't really talk about them. We only talked kind of about the Trey Ford factor, but I think Edmonton's defense is going to be good later in the season. They have a lot of really good pieces to them. I think they're just going to take some time to gel all together, and that might not come yet. But at 48.5, I could see this falling a little bit short on the over-under. And, a 6-point line is always terrifying to me. But I think if anybody can cover that, it's the Alouettes. So give me Montreal -6 here on this game, as well as we move on to our second game of the week, which is the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Toronto Argonauts. Or I guess first, before we do that, we did Adam give us the coin flip?
He said he would later. I don't know.
I don't think he did, unfortunately. So no coin flip and no Adam's pick. So check out the Discord.
You know what?
Get him to flip the coin.
Yeah. As I was going to say, that's going to be a good plug for the Discord. It'll be a Discord exclusive this week as the Adam and the coin picks.
Yeah, there we go. Suddenly the Discord gets overloaded for the true star of the show, the coin. All right, Saskatchewan, Toronto is our second game of the week. The Riders going into Toronto as 2.5-point favorites right now, over under at 48.5 here as well. I'll start us off with storylines for this one. On the Toronto side, it's definitely that Chad Kelly is still not good to go this week. Looking promising for week 4, so at least not that long of a wait to see Chad Kelly back. And Argos fans are probably saying thank goodness because they need him back in a hurry. This 0-2 start for the defending champs, they have not looked good so far this season. I feel like they've taken a step back. Nick Arbuckle, my take after watching what he did in that game against Calgary was, wow, the Bombers really screwed up that Grey Cup last year, because this is the Nick Arbuckle that I've been saying for, all throughout last playoffs and stuff of like, this is the type of Arbuckle we're used to seeing over recent years, despite all the hype early on in his career. That was there the last few years in Ottawa and then Toronto just has not looked great. And kudos to him for pulling out that very impressive performance, especially so in the Grey Cup. And he absolutely deserved all the accolades he got for it. But he's just not moving this offense downfield a whole ton right now. And that's a concern for me. And I know he's just kind of trying to hold the team afloat until Kelly is back. But, this is realistically could be an Argos team that's starting the season 0-3 here.
No, I agree, and I'm looking forward ahead. So you said if he's possibly ready next week, they got like 3 or 4 games against the East Division starting week 4, and then they have a back-to-back against Winnipeg and stuff like that. So things get really juicy in the next few weeks for Toronto. And with how things are going, I know it's early and I don't want to be that person, but the way things are going, it might be a 2-team playoff in the East, right? Like we got, Calgary, Winnipeg, and Saskatchewan, and BC all trying to fight for 3 spots in the West. So Toronto, Ottawa, or Hamilton need to get their butts into gear and get that second place because it could be tough, right? So this game I'm very interested in from a few aspects. If Kelly's out, I'm actually surprised this line isn't bigger depending on the Kelly being out thing and all the injuries Toronto has. So I wonder if this line is still looming because some of the injuries are uncertain or because it's home in Toronto. I don't know, because Saskatchewan's looked pretty good. Ouellette ran pretty good last week, being back healthy. We all know what the backup could do if he's healthy, because I know he got hurt week 1 too, right? The hyphenated name, Bertrand Houdon. So, I'm really interested in what Saskatchewan can do here too, because I'm interested in both sides. Toronto's got to get their act into gear because it's a battle for second right now in the East, which could be the only playoff spot potentially. Right. And then on the other side, flip side, Saskatchewan, well, they're battling with an undefeated Calgary and a 1-0 Winnipeg and a 1-1 BC. So a loss puts them kind of tied with BC for fourth or third or whatever the math is, right? And if, God forbid, Edmonton gets an upset win on Thursday, the West just got a lot more funky.
Yeah, the difference between these two teams, like the Riders are 2-0 and the Argos are 0-2, both have had a massive amount of injuries to them. The Riders just seem to be the better built teams this year that can withstand those injuries and still get the job done. Yeah. And they've been able to overcome those. But on the Toronto side, we talked about the Kelly injury, but there's some other notable big ones like Winton McManus, the anchor of that defense, who did lose a lot of pieces in this offseason, I think has taken a bit of a step back. He's out with injury this week. The Deontay McMahon, he left early with an injury last week. Mayan Williams came in. Brandon Sanders on our show last week, brought his college fantasy stars making names for themselves in the CFL. And Mayan Williams was on the list, and he performed pretty admirably this week. I think he was the highest scoring running back in fantasy, which was a bit of a surprise. And now the Argos have brought back Kevin Brown, who they released at the start of the season. So doesn't look great for McMahon's injury. And suddenly, you kind of wonder if Toronto is looking at the guy who might be on the bench on the other side of the field in Kadeem Carey this week and wondering, maybe we shouldn't have released this guy.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I wonder how much he wants to play this week. Just take me off the PR for one game, and I'll go back to the practice roster the rest of the season. I bet he would. If Kadeem Carey was starting this game, I'd say the line should be -10 because he's going to just want to run and just tell Trevor Harris, just give me the ball. And then they put Ouellette out in front of him to block. That would be like the old like I formation. Put Ouellette as fullback, and I bet they would run for 1,000 yards. But I think it's always interesting too because I wonder about trade secrets. You got Andrew Harris now as a coach, Ouellette former Argo, Kadeem Carey former Argo, Mace former Argo coach. So again, I wonder how much. I know things change year to year, but I wonder how many trade secrets might be in that. I know every team has them, but I wonder how many trade secrets might be in that Saskatchewan locker room as well. Again, I'm actually kind of surprised by this line, unless it's because Emelis is hurt, right? He's questionable. Yes. So, and I know he's been a big target out there for Harris, but is Keyshawn Johnson good to go?
He is, and he will probably get like 18 passes in a row like he did against Hamilton. It wasn't 18, but I think it was like 6 straight on a drive late in the game or something like that.
And Saskatchewan's actually one of those teams too where if they're all healthy, I have no problem with their makeup. Harris is actually surprisingly, again, he's not been a guy that I've been super high on, even though he's not flashy. He gets the stats. He's not flashy. He'd be like, I don't even know who to compare him to. Like a Phillip Rivers in the NFL, like doesn't go crazy stats wise, but somehow gets wins, somehow gets yards, just does enough to, make the team, put the team in great position. He's not necessarily the Tom Brady out there, but he's getting things done. I like Ouellette when he's healthy. They got a backup that can clearly play. The receiving core is pretty lit. Their defense is pretty decent when they want to play. They got a decent return game. Kicker could be hit and miss, but that seems to be a problem in the CFL. So I mean, it's
weird year for the kickers.
Yeah. So again, maybe they're putting those chips back in the ball. I don't know. That's actually funny. I could have worked for that company this summer, but that's another story. Forgot to mention that. Saskatchewan's another one of those weird teams that I'm really like. I knew they would be good, but I think they could be a lot better once they got their health figured out.
Yeah, we were talking about Kadeem Carey and wanting to start. I think he had an interview this week, and I saw an article from 3 Down Nation with some quotes from Kadeem Carey about basically along the lines of, the Argos are seeing already that they messed up releasing me and that nobody knows this team better than I do. So definitely, like you said, some trade secrets going on in that room in this game. And My only other story I want to talk about from the Saskatchewan side here is they've looked good. They've been 2-0. They seemingly have moved the ball with ease and everything. But to me, they still seem to have a little bit of an issue playing that full 60 minutes so far, where Hamilton probably shouldn't have been in that game against Saskatchewan this week, but they let them hang around. Same thing with Ottawa. They let them get close in week 1. So I need to see that true 60 minutes from them, which was a problem we saw from them last year at times too, to go and emphasize that they are, the top dogs in the CFL. For the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Let's get into fantasy players to watch in this game. I'll go to you first here again for this one. Who you got, Saskatchewan and Toronto?
Right now, I got nobody on Toronto just because you're not going Arbuckle. There's a non-existent run game, it seems like. And the receivers, when they do get thrown, it kind of seems to be spread out. I know Coxie did okay, didn't he? Was he on my other fantasy team? Yeah. Yeah, anyway, he did okay. Maybe Coxie if there's room. I don't have room for him right now. The one guy I'm looking at is give me the Thor hammer on Ouellette. I again, when he gets going, what do you have? 15.6 points last week. As long as he stays healthy, as long as he gets going, I think he's there's two running backs that if I had a fantasy draft, like expansion draft right now, and they were unprotected, I'm going for them all day between Oliveira and Ouellette, like the double O. So it's just it's Ouellette for days.
I'm still not as big of an Ouellette guy. I feel like I was a bigger Ouellette guy when he was like the third string running back in Toronto a number of years ago than I am now when he is the starter in Saskatchewan, if that makes any sense.
I think he's getting beaten up. I'll give him that. I think he's a little beaten up, and it's tough. Like, we could have a guy like Oliveira who was beaten up and nobody knew about it until like after the offseason, right? He had some injury that was looming. Ouellette, he just seems to get beaten up, but that's his kind of running style. The big power back like Oliveira and Ouellette they're going to get beaten up and they're going to get hit. And but I think when he's healthy, I think he's I'm not even going to say second. I'm going to say 1B running back in this league. I'll give Oliveira the edge just because of the passport and Canadian and all that too. But I think head to head, these there's nothing more than I want a Banjo Bowl Labor Day, just a battle between these guys. I know we can talk about that later. I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. But when it comes to fantasy, Ouellette, I think it's worth the risk on that at 11,000.
Yeah, he is in consideration for me as well, because I do expect Saskatchewan to perform pretty well in this game and move the ball well and get into the red zone and have opportunities for Ouellette to score. And the Argos run defense has been a little more susceptible to give up some big points this year than they were last season. On talking about the Toronto side, don't really trust any of the receivers with Nick Arbuckle at the helm. DeMonte Coxie, to be fair, has averaged 18.4 points through 2 games so far this season, despite that. But on any given week, I'm not trusting that necessarily. The only Argo I would consider putting in my lineup this week, perhaps, is Mayan Williams at $5,000, because we know McMahon is not going to be in the lineup. Yes, they signed back Kevin Brown, but you have to like what you, and maybe he'll be the leader on the depth chart, but you have to like what you saw from Williams last week, where he caught like 8 or 9 passes in that game and looked pretty good, as well as kind of that escape hatch, so to say, for Arbuckle and that Argos offense. On the Saskatchewan side, the one guy I really wanted to put in my lineup this week that you talked about already is not playing is Sam Emilus, because kind of the advice I've given in fantasy over the last couple of weeks is that typically you want to target receivers on the left side of the quarterback because they put up higher points than the ones to the right. Facing the Argos is actually a bit of a different to the norm. They're pretty good at shutting down the guys to the left and a little more susceptible to the right. And that's exactly where Sam Emilus would have lined up if he was healthy and he got a lot of targets, but he is out this week. So you got to check the depth chart there for Saskatchewan. They like to move everybody around, I find, when one of the guys gets injured. So we'll have to see who lines up where. Keyshawn Johnson is the hot hand, obviously, there. He is now up to $8,000 in price. I think that's still a pretty decent price, though, if you do want to take a Riders receiver in this game. I would also maybe throw the Riders defense in for consideration if you don't want to go with Montreal, but I think their defense is pretty expensive and probably not that much of a discount over the Montreal Alouettes. What do we got for the betting line? Yeah, interesting line on this one, like you said, with I'm really surprised it has not changed at all either. Like right after the game the other day, Dinwiddie went and said Chad Kelly is not going to play this week. So this line was established. Either Vegas has just full on missed the fact that Kelly is not playing this week, or this was set this way with that even in mind. But the Riders are 2.5-point favorites, and the line is at 48.5. Which direction are you heading here?
I'm getting myself nervous here because I'm looking at it, and first looking, I like all the favorites. But looking back, here's a little fun fact. Out of the 8 games, 5 of the 8, the favorites have covered or won. Where the other 3, I think, actually, I'm pretty sure the underdogs have won all 3 of the other ones. So we had Winnipeg last week at +3 winning. We had last week, we also had Calgary beating Toronto at plus odds. And then week 1, we had I had it here. Calgary again beating Hamilton at plus odds, right? So so that's making me nervous. I don't want to go too many favorites because the underdogs are doing good, but I'm wondering if Vegas is slowly getting these odds figured out. But this one I don't think is figured out. This is another one like I think before. I could see Thursday, Friday, both being a touchdown game. So give me Saskatchewan, the -2.5. I wanted Hamilton to backdoor cover last week, and I was getting a little antsy on it this week. I think Saskatchewan will still win by that 5, 6, 7 kind of range, but I'll go the under as well. I think, again, this could be a 25-15 kind of game, What do you think?
I'm taking the Riders at -2.5 all day long in this game. I really like that play there on the over-under. I'm just looking at it here. The Riders in their first 2 games have hovered around 30 points. Do I think the Argos, without Chad Kelly, are going to put up more than 20, like roughly, right? Or more than 18? No, I think I'm going to go with the under on this one as well. And you and I are just in lockstep today through 2 games, which is a bit scary.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, so better time than ever. All 3 of us went 3-1 last week against the spread. The coin went 3-1 doing straight pick'ems. Over under, you and I both went 2-2, and Adam went 1-3. So season totals, all 3 of us are 5-3. Coin 6-2. But I think the straight pick'em is a little easier. So give us a break. And then the over unders, you and Adam are at 4-4, and I'm at 3-5. Over and unders are not my thing. I'll just fully say that. They're tough. They're not my thing. I'll admit that. I'm trying to get my spread back. We were all close. We all had one wrong last week, and we all had like a different one wrong. But yeah, we're doing pretty good. So I'll take that as you said under, right? So we're all
yeah.
Okay, perfect.
All right,
we're agreeing. But then watch, Adam's going to go pick the underdogs in all 4 games, or the coin is.
Probably. That's typically what he does. He likes to be a bit of a wild card there. Let's move on to our 3rd game here, which is
another wild one. -1, really?
Yeah, sorry. The Calgary Stampeders at home to the Ottawa Redblacks, 1-point favorites for Calgary. I think biggest storyline at the top of the hour, as they say. That sounds so professional when I say that. I don't like that. The biggest storyline
we are at the top of the hour too. Did you mean to do that?
Oh no, I actually did not. That was perfect. Did not look at the time at all. No.
I was like, oh man, wow.
Yeah, I'm just that good. #true professional. The biggest storyline here, though, is that Drew Brown seemed like he was fully back at practice this week and was going to play this week in terms of yesterday's practice. And then now, as of today, Dustin Crum is taking the first team reps, it seems, at practice. And it looks like potentially Crum will be starting instead of Matt Schultz this time around if Drew Brown is not good to go in this game, which you would think the betting line will trend a little bit more in the other direction, perhaps, if Brown is officially ruled out. Maybe there's some hope there, but back-to-back weeks, it seems that Ottawa might be without their quarterback, who I did claim was going to be this year's MOP, and it's really hard to win MOP if you're not out there on the football field playing. What do you think about Dustin Crum potentially getting the start here over Matt Schultz?
I mean, I don't know. I've never been high on Schultz. You were, or Adam was? One of you guys were, kind of.
I was to some degree.
But you also like the crumb back too, right? So I mean, yeah, you would go if you had to pick between the two. I know you'd pick the crumb back. I mean, I'm not too surprised. I'm actually wondering if Ottawa just needs just that weird like jump start. You know what I mean? And maybe Crumb's game style, like with the running and stuff like that, and how he got wild wins in the past and stuff like, or maybe that's just what they need. They just need to throw a little bit of chaos into it and just to try to get something going. That's the only thing I could see going. And yeah, I mean, very interesting line. Like, again, this could be another one where I'm like, I wouldn't be shocked if Calgary wins by double digits, right? So I'm kind of interested in that line, unless Vegas is thinking Calgary's been fluke through 2 weeks, but also Calgary hasn't thrown a passing touchdown, right? So
yeah, what do you think? What do you think? Is this the week that Vernon Adams finally throws a TD pass?
Maybe. I don't know. Like, wasn't it? Was it Caleros that didn't have one for a while last year?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, it's not a crazy thing. Like, to me, it almost shows that your team is so well put together that, you get into that certain thing. You have that package where you have the running back who can punch it in. You have the third, like the gadget third down running back or quarterback, who can run it. Like, you got all these different options, or your defense is just winning you the game, like we were talking about on our hot takes, right? So, I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily that he's not, but maybe, if there's going to be a team to do it, I think Ottawa might be the one where it breaks through, right? And then, Calgary's got the bye next week too, so I think this would be a perfect, excuse my language, but this could be a good shit kicking game. Just get, you know what I mean? If Calgary really it's a tune-up, it could be a tune-up game, go out there, blow their brains out, and then have a week off, and then you come back in 2 weeks against the Bombers, and probably one of the biggest early season matchups on Thursday night, right? So, I mean, I'm not trying to be rude to Ottawa. I thought Ottawa was going to be a lot better this year, too. They made some decent pickups. I just don't know if Drew Brown's it, but I also don't know if Crum or Schultz is it either. But
I do think that Vernon Adams will get that touchdown pass this week. I mean, Ottawa's given up over 30 points in both of their games so far. Their defense is they overhauled the entire secondary, and they're not gelling so far. And maybe they're a team like what I said earlier with Edmonton, where as the season goes along, they'll get it together a little bit more. I have a lot less faith in that defense right now. And that means that if Ottawa's going to win games, they're going to need to win games via a shootout. And Drew Brown is that kind of guy that can win you a few shootouts here and there. I don't think Matt Schultz is. I think Dustin Crum can be, right, in the capacity of what you talked about with those wild plays and those wild comebacks that he's pulled off over the last couple of years. I think he is a viable quarterback who can give them a chance in this game. My kind of hot take is actually that I almost think I would prefer Dustin Crum over Trey Ford. I think they're very similar style of players, but Crum is a more accurate passer, in my opinion, than Trey Ford is, and is more likely to use his arm in that capacity. So I think there is a chance here for Ottawa, despite that. But I do think, their defense, I think this is where we're going to see Vernon Adams come alive in the passing game this week. And I think that when we get into fantasy talk here shortly, there's some pretty viable options from both sides when it comes to this game from a fantasy perspective this week. The one big thing, big tough loss here for the Stamps is obviously Reggie Begelton, broken leg, I believe, from last week's game. He's been their star receiver for the past who knows how many years over in Calgary. So, VA hasn't really lit it up yet the way we expected to, and Calgary's found a way to be 2-0 up until this point, which means I wouldn't say they've hit their full potential yet, which is a little bit scary that they could still do so. They're just going to need the other guys to step up without Begelton in the lineup. And I do think they have a set of receivers that are capable of doing so, like Jalen Philpott did this past week.
No, 100%. I was just thinking about that. I was wondering if that loss would affect the line, but I mean, Begelton's not any of the top stats of any. Like he's a good receiver. I'm just saying he's not like you're not losing Lawler, Hatcher, like the top guys right now, or even Emelis in Saskatchewan, right? Like I could see that affecting a line where Calgary, Jalen Philpott's actually been playing pretty good. Dominic Rhymes has gotten a few bit of yards as well there in Calgary, so they got a really good thing going there in Calgary, and I hate it because can they just ever be bad for more than 2 years?
No, it's apparently not. No. But let's get into our fantasy picks for this game. I want to hear you. I like to hear your perspective first when it comes to fantasy. So let's keep that rolling. Sure. Ottawa, sure. Calgary. Who are you looking at?
As of now, I'm staying away from Ottawa. I just can't see anything there right now. Calgary, I was talking about potentially Tyson, but I can't fit the salary in, so why not take Jalen at the 7,500 he picked up some pretty good yards or points last week. What was it? 18 against Toronto, and I'm assuming Ottawa's defense is probably on par with Toronto's. And now with Bagleton being out, there could be a little bit more production being needed. And I like Jalen Philpott on this one. What about you?
Yeah, on the Ottawa side, I had Braylon Addison in my lineup originally just because he has been such a focal point of that offense this year, and he's averaged like 18 points in his first 2 games so far, and he's getting a ton of targets. With now the news that Drew Brown is likely going to be out, I'm a little more cautious to do so. But I do think I may lean that direction still, honestly, with Dustin Crum. Interestingly, we talk about Crum. He's $7,000 last week. You made $7,000 Chris Strevler your captain, which worked out pretty well as I think he was the second highest scoring quarterback of the week. Any consideration for Crum at the same price for you this week?
Oh, no, but only because I got someone special at quarterback this week.
Okay.
Which we haven't.
We'll get to that. To that.
Yeah. No, like, sure. If there was a team that was on a bye this week, maybe, but no. There's only one guy that I can put in my quarterback spot this week.
Well, we'll get to that segment shortly, I'm sure. Take your wild guesses. There's only one game we haven't talked about yet, and if you've listened to the podcast this year, I think you probably know who Trey's talking about. But stay tuned. On the Calgary side, I think there's a wealth of options, and I'm considering how heavy I want to go on the Stampeders here. I think Vernon Adams is a great pick for quarterback this week because I do think those touchdown passes are going to come against Ottawa, and he's been a solid contributor despite that. Dedrick Mills is one of my running backs right now, even though we expect probably a big passing game against Ottawa. I think that the Stamps offense is going to be able to move the ball so well that they're going to get into the red zone, and Mills is going to have opportunities to score a touchdown. Like Dedrick Mills is scoring a touchdown this week. I'm telling you right now that is going to happen. And so I want him as my running back this week. He's probably the running back I'm starting in our private fantasy league as well of my few options that I have there. I think it's going to be a bounce back after what was a pretty quiet week for him. Probably not as high as the 3 touchdown game from week 1, but somewhere in the middle. Should be a good game for Dedrick Mills. At receiver, Calgary's got some fun options at different prices. I like Dominic Rhymes for that connection with VA still to kind of be the leader with Bagleton being out this week. He is at $10,000. I have Rhymes in my lineup currently for that connection, but Jalen Philpott looked really good last week at 7,500. Tevin Jones is 6,500. Clark Barnes 7,800. Like all of these guys should step up and get more targets with Bagleton being out. I think you probably can't go wrong with putting a Calgary receiver in your lineup this week. That's what we got for fantasy players, I believe, on this particular game. We'll continue along then into the betting picks with Calgary, the 1-point favorite at home, and the over-under at 50.5.
Yeah, I got to take Calgary. I think that line's whack. And the over-under. I hate going under all the time because teams do put up points. Calgary's defense, we're talking about them being pretty stingy. So I'll take the under again. So yeah, -1 Calgary, under 50. What about you?
Oh, yeah. I'm taking Calgary, obviously, as well, in this one, for all of the reasons that we've talked about already. The line is a little bit higher on the over-under. I wonder if this comes down a bit once Brown is ruled out as well, but I do think Dustin Crum can make magic happen once in a while, so you know what? Give me the over on this one. I think this is going to be a fun little explosive game, and there is no shortage of offensive talent on both sides of the ball in this game. So I think there can be points put on the board.
Before we move on, can you just remind me what was the over under in the last game? Saskatchewan.
It was 48.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. I didn't write it down. There we go. We're good.
All right, then we move on to our final game of the week. We're making decent time here so far today. Watch us go way overtime on this one. But our final game of the week is a rematch, an early season rematch between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the BC Lions. This one in BC after the game in Winnipeg last week. What are you watching as your major storylines? I have a feeling there's a few of them for this game.
Yeah, I want to see what Rourke's like if he's healthy, and if he does play, is he 100%? That's one big aspect, because this is a big Western Division battle, and I kind of want to see what how Collaros looks on the other side. I think it's both quarterbacks. I want to see how Collaros looks if the week off helped him and not, or I guess the bye and the suspension. So 2 weeks off, does that really help him? Is he going to be rusty? What's it going to be? I knew he had a good off season if he was busy camping, right, or whatever it was. So that's kind of what. Anyway, I just want to see what the quarterbacks are going to be like for this one. I'm really interested because this one's another one where I could see it being, like you said earlier, Rourke kind of had a slow start last week against the Bomber defense. So I could see this one being where, I don't know, both quarterbacks have 150 yards, no touchdowns, kind of a boring passing game. Or I could see both guys throwing for 400. And, it's kind of I'm saying that about Collaros. I know, I realize that. But I could see both guys doing either side of that. What about you?
Well, if there's any team Collaros is going to throw for 400 against, it's the BC Lions. I feel like he always has his best games. Granted, he doesn't have Kenny Lawler, who usually plays his best against BC as well anymore. But, yeah, the quarterback battle is very interesting. I think just the battle of this is our second game we're seeing Winnipeg, and it's home and home against the same team. So, I don't know what to make of Winnipeg. I don't know what to make of BC right now. Kind of both of these teams. And I don't think this week is going to give me that answer. But, is Winnipeg as dominant as they were last week? I mean, they look pretty darn good despite Chris Streveler being their backup quarterback and being in there. And then Brady Oliveira goes down at the start of the game. And Matthew Peterson in his first career game runs for 130 yards and a touchdown. Like everything seemed to go Winnipeg's way last week. And on the other side, BC, pretty commanding win over Edmonton in week 1 and looked like an absolute disaster in this game. Like, the offensive line was atrocious. The receivers were dropping balls left and right. Yes, Rourke had some bad passes in there. They weren't on the same page. He hardly had the time to throw the ball to his receivers, and the defense couldn't stop a Winnipeg offense that we talk about an aging offensive line and a couple of backups being in there that kind of steamrolled through them most of the night. So, my question to you, I guess, would be what version of each of these teams do you think is real? I think BC, it's somewhere in between those two games, and I think Winnipeg, it's probably a little bit lower than what we saw last week, but maybe still, an upper echelon team again.
Oh no! If anyone on the Discord, my hot take of the century is that this Winnipeg team is the best version of this Winnipeg team we've seen since 2019, and that's and that's after 2 preseason games and 1 regular season game with Chris Streveler playing. Chris Streveler looked like pretty damn good out there. So, I mean, if this team around him, this offense around him made him look that good, and that defense didn't screw it up on the other side after losing, maybe not the talent, but losing Big Hill as a mentor, losing Tyrell Ford in that secondary, lost a lot of key pieces there, lost Kenny Lawler, lost Waller-Tarski, lost some, maybe not always the talent guys, but some of those glue guys. I thought Waller-Tarski was one of those glue guys in that locker room, right? Same with Big Hill, couple other guys on the defensive line. Like we lost a lot of pieces, and they still seem to be playing pretty dang good. So that's where I'm like, this might be the best version of this team. BC, I think they just one of those teams. It's kind of like in hockey where you have a team that has two good lines, and then the third and fourth line suck. And that's kind of where I'm feeling BC is. They're very top heavy. They're the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? They got a lot of.
No.
Well, maybe not that bad, but like you know what I mean, though. Like the teams that have you got the $15 million guys on your center and this and that, and then you got no salary cap left for those checking lines and that third and fourth line. Where I think Winnipeg's the other way. They're one of those teams. Maybe they don't got guys blowing people out of the water right now. Dembski looked new. Oliveira looked a lot better until he got hurt. Even the backup seemed pretty damn good. Again, even if it's not the backup, well, that offensive line made holes for him, or it was the threat of having Chris Streveler back there who didn't run a ton. There's just something about that Bomber, and I know I'm sounding like a homer, but again, check the tape. How hard have I been on them for 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah, this is a weird state to see you in.
Yeah, and this is going to be the year they break my heart, right? They're not even going to make the playoffs somehow. But anyway, yeah, so this is kind of where I'm going at with that, is that I think this Bomber team might be one of the best we've seen. I think BC could beat them. We always see this in the back-to-back situation. Now they're going home. Wonder what the tickets are like in BC. Is there a bump from their home opener 2 weeks ago? All these different things. It's a longer week. Did they play Thursday last week?
Yeah.
Yeah, and now they play on Saturday, so what, they get like week and a half off in between, almost like a bye again in there kind of thing. So I'm interested to see.
I mentioned last week that I don't think BC had the short week playing from Saturday to Thursday, whereas Winnipeg had the bye beforehand. And I didn't think that would impact the Lions that much because it's early season. You don't have that wear and tear yet. But where I think it actually ended up impacting them is just gelling and building that early season chemistry of not like having one practice essentially before that game last week. I do think played a little bit into that because they just looked disoriented as a unit collectively last week. Like there was no room for James Butler, 10 carries for only 27 yards from James Butler in that game. Rourke, I'm surprised he was only sacked once. I think he was pressured on every single play. And was trying to basically chuck it downfield with guys hanging off of him for the most part. And his stat line was padded by a couple big plays to Keon Hatcher and stuff like that. But, BC really seemed to struggle last week. And we've talked about, do they have the depth at wide receiver or do they not this year? And that'll continue to be the question coming out of, in upcoming weeks. But to me, they have to be better than what they were. And if not, this is going to be a really long season for them. Now, the thing we need to talk about is that Rourke did get shaken up and leave the game due to injury last week. And now there's been, reports out of practice of, is he going to play this week? Is he not? And then if not, then it's Jeremiah Masoli at the helm this week, which did not expect to see Jeremiah Masoli starting in week 3 of 2025, to say the least.
100%. That's throwing me off too. Interesting thing though, I'm just looking at here, talking about gelling. The Bombers will have 2 byes by week 6, and BC doesn't even have their first bye till week 9. So I wonder what that's, like the fun things of a 9-team league, right? So, is that going to be beneficial? Because then BC will obviously have more byes down the stretch, where Winnipeg got the early rest and got gelling. We could talk about that benefits all season too, but. No, I'm interested. I don't know. BC's a tough one. I just, again, they have Nathan Rourke. He's very talented. Again, back to my comparison. He could be the Austin Matthews, like a very talented guy, but you need the pieces around him, right? You can't have one guy in football do it all, especially that. Like, I just don't know if BC has those pieces. But again, the back-to-back is really freaking me out because we both went with 3 favorites. And like I've said, the favorites are only 5 and 3. It's not great odds. So very interesting. I don't know. I haven't fully made up my mind in this one. But Masoli, do you take Masoli?
Well,
I don't know.
I'll never count out Jeremiah Masoli. Didn't he set a record for completion rate against the Bombers when he was with Hamilton a few years ago, where he completed like 23 straight passes in a game or something like that? Like, Mazzoli's been one of those guys that has gotten a lot of flack throughout his career, but he has been a solid quarterback. the injuries, how well has he recovered? He got some game time with Ottawa last year after recovering from the injuries, back-to-back years of terrible ones that are tough to recover from. But I do think he is a capable quarterback still that I don't think this game is necessarily a lock for Winnipeg to win this one, would be my take.
I more meant the injury part. Like, what happens if he goes down? Then, was it, what's his name, Bryce?
Yeah, Chase Bryce.
Yeah, Chase Bryce. Again, maybe we got the Crumback 3.0 or 4.0 kind of stirring because we always see what backup quarterbacks can do. But that's kind of where I'm going. And, again, is a 50% Nathan Rourke worth playing? Is a Mazzoli? It's just, I don't know. I wish I knew. This one's killing me. This is weird. This was probably the hardest game for me to pick, and it shouldn't be. But
and who's doing short yardage if Nathan Rourke's not playing? Because you're not getting. Please don't put Jeremiah Mazzoli out there to do short yardage right now. And Chase Bryce wasn't very good at it in week number 1. So, maybe backup running back Xander Horvath. Maybe he gets in there for the short yardage like the Ticats do with Litre. On the Winnipeg side, Matthew Peterson, we haven't really talked enough about him yet, where he looked fantastic in his debut last week, covering Oliveira. You hardly noticed a difference with him being out there. And what a trade that was for the Bombers, who traded a pick in the global draft or something like that, I want to say, for Peterson this offseason from the Ticats. Heck of an addition, it seems. Granted, it's one game so far, but he looked really good. Earlier this week, they reported that Brady Oliveira was probably going to miss a couple of games, and yet I've seen talk today that he was out there practicing, and there is a non-zero chance that he will be back out there this week. I really don't think he's playing. I think it's going to be a week or two or a couple of weeks still before he's back, but it seems at least like it's not a long-term injury for Oliveira. But even if it is, Peterson looked great last week. Quentin Cooley was the star of the preseason, the name you probably heard the most in the preseason. It seems like this team's got some depth there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I'm not trying to take away anything from Oliveira or Peterson, but back to my hot take. I think that offensive line looked good, which is kind of weird. That's something we've been criticizing a lot of teams for. So I think it could be one of those things where we finally got Buck Pierce away from calling plays in Winnipeg. And guess what? We can run the ball. Crazy.
Yeah, great debut for Jason Hogan, for sure, as the offensive coordinator last week. Just catching up on a few comments here related to this game. We've got a new subscriber, Justin Paul Sports. Welcome. Thanks for checking out the show, and hope you stick with us throughout the season. Blake saying he's not playing. I'm assuming that was talking about about Nathan Rourke when we started that conversation. And yes, Dembski does look on pace to have a great season. I absolutely agree. I think he'll be a focal point of that offense. Speaking of offenses, let's go to fantasy picks for this game. Why don't you finally tell us who your quarterback this week is?
Well, I got a couple other positions out of the way first.
Okay.
Because I got to go with whoever's starting. If it's not Oliveira, I'm going with Peterson. I'm assuming Oliveira's not starting, but whichever running back, I like either guy. I think either guy will run for a bunch. Give me that Winnipeg defense. Because you either have an injured Nathan Rourke by the off chance he plays, because he's not 100%, or you have Jeremiah Mazzoli, which I'm a little uncertain about. So I'm going to take the Winnipeg defense there. And the quarterback, man, you know how bad I want to take Chris Streveler, but I'm going to take Zach Caleros and going to captain him because he doesn't get up these yards, but just there's something about him. And I know I hate sounding like a homer, because I have hated Winnipeg so bad over the last 4 or 5 years being on this show. It's not been that long. But anyway, you know what my point is. But I think there's just something about this team seems really, really rejuvenated. And Caleros might be that guy too. And I wouldn't be surprised if he lights up in his return. But I also do want to take Streveler just because I could also see him getting like 2 or 3 goal line touchdowns.
I do like, just quick note from last week's game where, most Winnipeg games, those are the ones I try to watch the entire thing. So I'll PVR them and I'll watch them after the fact. So I was watching on a delay. And I know last week you were touting, Chris Strevler as captain. I think you even somehow got Adam on board with it. I put Nathan Rourke in as my captain 2 minutes before the game started. My progression the half hour before the week started went from, I think I had Rourke to Oliveira to Bo Levi Mitchell back to Rourke. And boy, did I choose the right option in the end out of all of those if I would have had Oliveira as my captain. But I put Rourke in. And of course, I'm watching the game early on the delay. I've got the Discord notifications off for that game because I didn't want to get spoiled on anything. And every single incomplete pass early in the game, I'm like, this is going to be a nightmare. The guys are going to let me just have it over this of Nathan Rourke's disaster. And Chris Strevler, of course, comes out and throws a touchdown pass right away. Nathan Rourke did have more points in the end, so I felt vindicated. But you were absolutely right with the Chris Strevler pick last week, who for the $7,000 price put up 19 points on the week.
Who would have thought a 3-point difference?
Yeah,
at the end of the game, right? Like, or less than that, so that's because I mean, watch Chris Strevler go 3 interceptions and and he tries to run the ball. It could have been bad either way, but yeah.
If Rourke didn't turn that around last week, I may have just left the Discord. Like, here you guys go. This is all yours.
No, but I think there's something about the Bombers, and I hate being the homer because I give Mike shit for it. We give everyone crap for it for being the homer, and I hate it. But I'm just actually really excited, and it's the year I don't have season tickets. And I kind of hate myself, but that might be the year. Maybe I just need this year to get my act together and get season tickets again next year, and then they'll go back to stressing me out. But
yeah, maybe. In terms of my fantasy picks in this game, I had Rourke in my lineup as my captain.
I missed one.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
$4,000. Give me Wheatfall. That is a crime. Whoever makes these prices should go to jail. No no probation, because Wheatfall at 4,000 is ridiculous.
Yeah, I have him in my lineup as well. Despite having as many yards as he had last week, he was the 4th highest scoring receiver last week, I think I said. His price dropped $1,000 on Game Zone Fantasy. It was $5,000 last week. It was $4,000 this week. Make it make sense.
23.7 points isn't good enough, huh?
It does not make sense. And I was ready to start praising them too for the fact that they've updated prices weekly, because it used to be that CFL Fantasy had set times of the year that they would update the pricing models, so you could just keep picking the best value plays for 5 weeks in a row. They've updated a lot of them to make it more difficult, but then you have ones like this where it just does not make sense to drop his price $1,000. Absolutely put Carrick Wheatfall into your lineup.
The only thing I got is there some forecast where they think Caleros isn't going to throw to him?
Maybe.
But then Caleros is also 14,000, the most expensive quarterback.
I mean, Caleros wasn't even in fantasy until earlier today.
That's fair, yeah. But again, he wasn't even in fantasy, and he's tied with VA, and he's only below Bo. So he's higher than Rourke, Harris, Alexander, Ford, everybody else.
Yeah, I'm not going the Zach Caleros direction. I didn't think his stats jumped out well enough last year. He doesn't typically run the ball much, and I need that mobile quarterback. So I'm not going that direction at quarterback for me, but I'm absolutely putting Wheatfall in my lineup. That helps save some money there. In terms of the receivers, I've always had bad luck picking Bombers receivers outside of the discount play in Wheatfall this week. So yes, Schoen could have a great game. Yes, Dembski could have a great game, but I'm probably not throwing them into my lineup. I do like Peterson if he plays. I do like Oliveira probably. The only downside is this is the last game of the week, so I don't know if we'll have the decision necessarily early on, and that's a $7,000 price difference between the two. So if I'm planning to take Peterson and then he doesn't play, what's the alternative in that direction? But given that it's a Saturday game, depth chart comes out Friday. We should have the injury report on Thursday before Thursday night football. So should have at least some idea of who's going to play at running back there. On the BC side, I did have Nathan Orkin as my captain just because he was the highest scoring quarterback in the CFL last week in a disastrous game. And my thought process is, how can it not get better than it did last week, which should lead to more points out there, short yardage play for him as well. But obviously need to monitor those injury reports, and I'm not going to take them otherwise. In terms of other BC players, just how dominant Winnipeg was with shutting them down last week, I'm probably not going to any other BC player this week. Maybe Hatcher for that connection on those big plays, but I think I like enough receiver options elsewhere to not go that route, especially if Rourke's a little bit banged up.
Yeah, well,
that brings us to our betting picks for this game. You got to make the pick now, Trey. It's the Bombers 2.5-point favorites on the road in BC. Over/under is at 50.5.
Gotta go with it. I'm actually wearing the shorts and the shirt, so I think it would be absolute blasphemy not to take the Bombers in this one. I do get the old thing that you say, the back-to-back, and I really want to, but and sure, maybe Mazzoli could be serviceable. He's a guy that I think, though, I'd like to see him after a couple weeks. Like if this game was in a few weeks again, I know it's not back-to-back, but after Mazzoli had a couple of starts, I'd be a little bit more comfortable. Is Rourke in? Is Rourke not in? So I'm going to go with Winnipeg. I'm actually going to take the over in this one, though. I'm thinking that there might be some points. What was the score last week? I can't remember.
34-20, so that passed the total.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a similar score, so I'm going to take the over.
Are we just going to agree on it like every game this week, pretty much? Well, I guess we disagreed on the over/under last week, but normally I would pick the split, and that's typically what I would do. But I think BC surprised me a little bit in week number 1 with how well they did against Edmonton, and they disappointed me greatly in week number 2. And I think it is somewhere in between. But as of right now, Winnipeg looked really good, and they do get that piece back in Collaros. So I'm going to take the Bombers to cover here, although I would not be surprised to see it go the other direction at all. And I am going to take the over on this because I think there can be some points put up on the board.
Yeah, we just disagreed with the over/under in the Calgary game. That's all. I took the under and you took the over. But otherwise, we're all on the same page, Ryan.
Yeah, this week it seemed like a bit of an easier one for some of those lines, definitely there as well. Those are our 4 games for the week. Question here about the Calgary Stampeders being the team to beat. We chatted about that in our Hot Take segment at the start of this show and in the Stamp segment the game before this as well. We were both pretty high on the Stampeders. Do you got fantasy league updates at all for the Discord league? Do we want to take a look at that if you've got it up?
You know what? I just started exiting things but but it's here somewhere.
I'll pull up the podcast fantasy league first. That's where we're playing against all the other podcasters. Yours truly is at the top of the standings, tied for first at 2-0, and I had the highest score of the week. So a good start to the year for myself. You are at 1-1. Adam is also at 1-1. Pretty much everybody is at 1-1.
Yeah, and that league is crazy.
In that league. This coming week, we have for our matchups, Adam is playing the CFL Outsiders. Trey, you've got BB Can Ryan. Rough week to play Ryan Ballantyne, who's going to start an entire Stamps lineup when they're facing the Red Blacks defense. So you got your work cut out for you here, potentially.
Yeah.
Rough week there.
I mean, I could just go for the tie and pick all Stamps.
Bold strategy. We'll see if it pays off. I think the spreadsheet can support ties, hopefully. If not, we'll find a way to break it again. And then I've got Andrew from the Turf District this week, which is always a fun matchup. So looking forward to that and trying to continue the streak of 3-0 to start the year. You got the Discord matchups?
Yeah, I had to scroll up because there was a lot of nonsense about who's the funniest guy on the show. So I'm not too happy. Hi, Rich. Speaking of you. This week you won. You beat Waldo. Adam lost to Sandwiches, who had a pretty good week. And where am I? I beat Charlie there. So I think, pretty good there. We're all 1-1. Mike's 2-0. I forgot about Mike. Who did Mike beat? Yeah, Mike beat Extreme. So Mike's 2-0. He's the only one on the show that's 2-0. But man, the Discord league is tougher than the podcast league, which is, you guys are psychos in the Discord. We got Josh M, who's Antler Up, had the most points of the week. And then Richard, you're a goat too. You're just like a couple points behind him overall. These guys are wild. And then next week, who do we all play? You play Richard, right? You're looking to dethrone him.
Oh yeah.
The week he's having. Mike plays Sandwishes. I play Larry, and Adam plays Josh, who's the top scorer right now overall. So a couple big matchups. You and Adam have to take on the guys at the top on that one. But Adam's 0-2. You're 1-1, and I'm 1-1, and yeah, Mike's 2-0. Top 7 make the playoffs. That number 1 seed is very desirable with the bye. So
somehow Mike's always the best of us in when it comes to the Discord league.
And he was the one complaining about only top 7 making it.
Yeah, he's going to clinch his playoff spot easily. Of course, quick update on our private draft league. You watched our fantasy draft preseason there as well. Trey, you had the top score of the week, 110.6 points. I came in second at 92.2. Mike had 91. Adam, 75.3. Brady Oliveira getting injured certainly didn't help his week. First place in the standings is me at 226. You're about 50 points behind me, 55 points behind me in second place. And then 10 points back behind you is Adam, and Mike is just like 0.6 behind him. So really it's a 3-way race for second place. Good luck to all of you there, but you made up some ground this week. Kudos to you. Big waiver wire week transactions this week. Most notable was the bids for Matthew Peterson. Everybody wanted a piece of him except for me, and everybody else put in a bid, and Mike won the bid with $20 bid on Peterson. Adam did as well, but Mike was lower in the standings. Trey with a nice addition of Keon Hatcher and Jose Maltos this week as well. And going back to earlier mid-show, I did pick up the Calgary Stampeders defense this week for that. Closing thoughts. Let's wrap things up here as I try to find the notes on how to do so. You think I'd remember after 290 episodes, but we will be back again next week with our week 4 CFL preview. We'll do all the fun things again. We'll have our hot take challenge for our week 3 hot take challenge. So whether it's on our social medias, which I'll plug right away, or in the Discord community after this week's game, send us your hot takes from this week and try to give us your best hot take and see if you can take the weekly crown for that competition. Of course, you can find us on X at CF Countdown Pod, Facebook.com/CF Countdown Pod. We're on Blue Sky as well. It's CF Countdown Pod. Whatever the format of the usernames is on Blue Sky. Make sure you're following everything we've got going on over there. We have a lot more going on the social media this year as well. I'm trying to get a little more involved with that. You've got my weekly power rankings going up there with a detailed explanation for each team. I know Trey's been doing his power rankings in the Discord as well, and trying to just find different content to throw up on the socials as we can throughout the season. So make sure you check that out there. Also, other shows from around the Canadian Football Podcast Network at CF Pod Network on X, Alternative Football Network as well at the official AFN on X, or alternativefootballnetwork.com. Check out all of the other great things everybody's got going on. And Trey, where can people find what you're all up to these days?
You can find me on the Twitter or the X, whatever you call it, at Trey MB Harness. Always got something going on there. Or in the Discord. Yeah, I'm pretty chatty in there, but no more jokes. But yeah, that's what else I could add, but I can't remember. Oh, you know what came out today, or was yesterday? The new version of Maximum Football came out on PlayStation. No CFL rules whatsoever, and no ability. When you create a team, there's no Canadian cities or anything. It's all American. So haven't dove too much into that. I thought about some potential bonus content, but no, I'm not doing it until we can get some CFL rules in there. So
that's unfortunate because I believe the Maximum Football started out as a Canadian company and used to have CFL rules in the initial version. Then they got, I want to say they got sold and got a huge rebranding. They got Doug Flutie involved at one point in it with promotion and his name involved in it. I've heard graphics wise, it's a big improvement than
looks
before.
Really good. And I don't know if Maximum Football is the only one, but I've heard Madden this might be the best Madden supposedly this year because they've had to step up because there have been other games popping up.
Right.
So I wonder, apparently this might be the best Madden ever, is what I've heard. But I mean, also that's what they always say. And then they change like 2 things and whatever. So
another $80, $90.
Apparently the weather's pretty crazy. Like the snow games on the new Madden can be wild.
Oh yeah.
And things like if you are if you're playing a cold city, you get the benefit in the snow, but then you get a slight disadvantage in a hot place. And then the hot places will play like it'll be reversed. So there's some cool engineerings and stuff. But anyway, Maximum Football, I was hoping I could make the CFL and do some cool shit, but not right now.
Yeah, maybe down the road. Question in the chat: who is Williams from Toronto? That's Mayan Williams at running back. Team Mike drafted him in the draft as a depth pick in the bonus rounds, so that's looking like a pretty good pick for Team Mike there. In terms of my social media, you can find me on X at CooperTrooper42. I'm trying to, get a little more involved there also with getting more involved with podcast stuff. But most of the things I post will be on the at CF Countdown Pod show account. So make sure you follow that there as well. We've talked about the Discord many, many times throughout the night. Just check the link in the episode description. There's a little paragraph there with the link to join us over in the Discord and have all of the fun that we have in between episodes. So join us there. And whatever podcast platform you're listening on, we appreciate if you do all the fun things such as like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends, help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. We've gotten a handful of new subscribers here at the start of the new season, which has been great to see. Thanks to everybody checking us out for the first time. And of course, all of the folks that check the show out regularly. We do always appreciate your continued support. On behalf of Trey, I'm Ryan saying thank you for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.